What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for April 1st, 2023. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. We made it to April. We have a lot of fun things on tap for April. If you haven't done so already, please go back and check out the latest Back to the Future. We put our exclamation point on Women's History Month. Definitely worth the listen. Go like and subscribe both podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Quick Sixers update, 117-110 over the not over the Cavs, over the Raptors last night, which Raptors are always pesky. I was afraid there was going to be some cheap shot, just like it seems like there always is with them. But good win for them. Basically, they're up 3.5 games on the Cavs. Sixers have 5 games left. Cavs have 4. So it does appear that they're kind of locked into that third seed. So we'll take that. It's probably going to set up for Boston in the second round, but you're going to have to beat them eventually. So we'll see what happens there. Flyers in action tonight against the Sabres. Still 26th in the standings. So right where they need to be. Hopefully they can drop a few more spots and increase those odds somewhat. But on this day in Philly sports history, we're going to go back to 1985, April 1st, 1985. The 8th seed at Villanova Wildcats took on the number 1 seed and number 1 overall team, Georgetown Hoyas, for the national championship. Villanova coming out on top 66-64. Ed Pickney, who was the MVP, had 16, 6 boards and 5 assists. Dwayne McClain led all scorers with 17. The crazy part is Pickney was sick with the stomach bug or the flu or something, and basically was laying on the floor in the locker room before the game, but was able to come out and step up when needed to. This game was very big for a couple reasons. Obviously, it is the first time that an 8 seed had won the tournament. It's to date, it's still the biggest Cinderella story ever because of the fact they won. But it did cause the NCAA to implement the shot clock because Villanova and Raleigh Massimino did what was called the stall tactic, which basically they just held the ball because there was no shot clock. So they only took 28 shots that game, but they hit 22 of them for like 79%. So that really was the difference in the game. Georgetown, if in case you were wondering, shot 55% on 53 shots. Still not too bad. But again, they did and changed the rules because they were afraid more teams would start doing that, especially with the big difference in talent levels. So they didn't want that to happen. God forbid the game was boring. But I think, honestly, it was a good change and needed at the time. But Villanova was the last team to win the championship without the shot clock. But like I said, the biggest Cinderella story ever. Couple other times in 2011 with Butler, 2014 with Kentucky, and then last year with North Carolina. An 8 seed did make it to the final. Obviously, Nova's the only one to win. That year, they actually lost to Georgetown both times they played them in the regular season, and were not playing good basketball down the stretch and into the Big East tournament. So the fact that they were able to get hot in the tournament was good. They beat Dayton by 2 in Dayton in the first round. Michigan, who was ranked number 2 in the country, Maryland, North Carolina, who was 7, and then Memphis, who was 5. So not a bad little run for the Wildcats there. But on this day, April 1st, 1985, Villanova pulled off the biggest upset in the NCAA tournament to win the championship over Georgetown, 66-64. All right, so we've been doing the Black History Month Spotlight. Last month we did the Women's History Month, and I kind of like doing the Spotlight because it helped me to learn things, and hopefully you guys were getting some education out of it too. So for April, the NFL Draft is usually the month that it happens. This month it's the 27th through the 29th. So what we're going to do this month is just spotlight random Eagles draft picks. Most of them were from the past 30 or 40 years. We are going to go back for a couple of them, including today. But today's Eagles draft pick spotlight, we're going to look at Leroy Keyes. The Newport News, Virginia native, was drafted number 3 overall by the Eagles in 1969. He was a running back. switched to safety later in his career, but in college he was just amazing. He was an All-American at Purdue in 67 and 68, finished third in the Heisman in 67, second in 68, and just was an amazing college player. He led the country in scoring in 1967. He is in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, and he is on the Mount Rushmore of Purdue football players with Drew Brees, Bob Greasy, and Rod Woodson. But as a pro, he only managed 637 yards and 3 touchdowns in 5 years as a professional. He moved to strong safety in 1971 and then finished his career out in Kansas City in 1973. Definitely overall a bust for the Eagles, but the reason I wanted to spotlight him is he's most known for probably the guy that the Eagles drafted instead of O.J. Simpson. And if you know the story, back in the 1968 season, they were 0-11, looking like they were going to get that first pick, which by all accounts was O.J. Simpson. They ended up winning their next 2 games, and then before losing their last one, dropped to the 3rd pick. And if you kind of are up on your history or pay attention to the podcast, that was the season that the Eagles booed Santa Claus and threw snowballs at him. Just a bad time to be an Eagles fan. But I think in that draft, the fact that we got a running back who was almost on par with OJ and he turned out to be a bust is the big story. But little known, the guy that went right after Leroy Keyes at number 4 to the Steelers was a pretty good guy and a Hall of Famer in his own right, Mean Joe Green. So not only did we miss out on OJ, we picked the bust, we missed out on Mean Joe Green. But nothing personal, but damn Leroy Keyes. Like that, it's up there as one of the worst draft picks in Eagles history, only because of the circumstances that kind of followed it. He wasn't OJ. And then they missed out on Mean Joe Green with the next pick. And again, nothing personal to him. He, by all accounts from what I read, he was a very nice guy, great college player. He passed away in 2021, so rest in peace. But he was always known as, or will always be known to me anyway, as the O.J. Simpson Consolation Prize of that year. So this is just what happens. And as you're going to see throughout the month of April, the Eagles have some hits and they have a lot of big whiffs too. So we'll talk about that. But today we looked at Leroy Keyes, number 3 overall pick in 1969. Villanova Wildcats is the anniversary of their magical championship in 1985. They would go on to win a couple more under Jay Wright in the past few years. But go have yourselves a Saturday. Don't fall for any April Fool's pranks. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.